I understand that if I'm a diabetic, that I need to really watch my carbohydrates and the type of carbs that I eat. Sometimes I need to count my carbs. Well, is that important or not? Well, today's program is just for you, entitled Diabetes and Carbohydrates. So stay by. Hi, welcome to Abundant Living. This is Curtis Akins, your co-host, which means that I have another co-host with me, my partner in crime. Well, not in crime, just my partner. Let's just be the crime out part, yes.
Okay.
And how you doing, honey?
I'm fine.
And
Paula Akins.
Paula Akins, okay. Yes. Same last name, so we're married.
Yes.
Holy matrimony. It's been pretty good 16 years, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. It's
okay,
been good.
There's a little slight hesitation, but
I'm just thinking before the program started. My mind is still back.
Okay, we're not going to share with them what happened before the program.
No, we're not going to
aired.
share.
We're going to keep on going with diabetes and carbohydrates. Okay. Yes, and again, this is part of a running series entitled Defeating Diabetes. So after this program, we have two more other programs dealing with diabetes, lifestyle to reverse diabetes, and also diabetes and botanical medicine as well. So, but this program, Defeating Diabetes, is the series, but diabetes and carbohydrates, because that's the key thing that a lot of people have on their mind about the carbohydrates, what type of carbs, and should I count my carbs? So we'll try to share with you some information that you need that will make it a lot plainer.
Let's start off by defining the term carbohydrates.
Okay. Now, this definition, again, I go back into my grade school years. And I hope my teacher is watching, by the way. She told this to us, I guess, about 45 years ago in grade school. She says, class, she probably got tired of asking her questions about what does a word mean. She said, class, if you don't know what a word means, try to define the components of a word and then put those definitions together and see if you can come up with the meaning of that word. So we're going to do that with the word carbohydrates. Okay, it's basically two words. Carbo comes from the word carbon, a basic element found in all living organisms. It's used for energy, used for combustion. You know, back in the 70s, those who remember, who are old enough, I know my brother had a 67 red Mustang, wide tires, a spoiler in the back, and he had a 4-barrel carburetor. So the more carbs he had, the more fuel and faster the 67 Camaro ran. And a lot of times he'd do little races in the street. Well, this is years ago now, so he never lost a race anyway. So the body needs carbon, a basic element for fuel, all right? Carburetor is fuel for the automobile. Carbohydrate is fuel for the body. Now, the second part of that word is hydrate. Now, a lot of people know about hydrate because if you're dehydrated, that means you have a lack of water. So the word hydrate simply means water. And of course, the body's made up of 67% water, our bones, our brain, our blood, of water. So when you put those two words together, carbon, a basic element for living organisms they all need for energy, hydrate, water, our bodies are made up of water, thereby we need carbohydrate for daily living processes. So we need carbohydrate. Now, it's interesting that God's word has something to say about carbohydrates as well. And we look at God's original diet. Let's go to the screen. Let's look at God's original diet. Let's see if God's original diet has some carbohydrates in it as well, because we'll explain that later on in detail. The Bible says, this is Genesis 1:29, the NIV, it says, I give you every seed-bearing plant and every tree that has fruit. They will be yours for food. So fruit is a carbohydrate, and we're going to explain that later on in the program. Now, that's before sin. After sin, God added something to that diet. Let's go to our screen for the next diet, the additional diet, Genesis 3:18. And God says, and you will eat the plants of the field. Thereby, with those two texts together, a fruit from the tree, plants from the field, a plant-based diet that is in abundance of carbohydrate. All right? So it's very, very popular for that. Now, with that in mind, honey, let's go through the process, because when someone eats foods, particularly carbohydrates, walk us through as far as what happens in the body system. I think we have a graphic for that. Let's show the graphic this time and then kind of walk us through the process, okay? All right.
Okay. The minute we eat any type of carbohydrate, what happens is it alerts the system that the carbon or the sugars in the blood itself. Now, the name of the game is that the pancreas is alerted. It will then, we want to look at then the insulin also is coming out from the pancreas. The first part of the glucose is going to go into the muscle and or into the liver, both areas. It goes from the glucose or the sugar to a glycogen. It's stored there to give us the energy we need to have. And from there, from that point, anything in excess of what the body needs then goes into fat storing cells.
Okay.
Now, after this whole process, and thanks for that graphic, after this whole process, what happens is it then moves back into its normacy. In other words, the bloodstream is clear. Otherwise, if the sugar stays in the blood, does not go to the liver or the muscle, does not go to fat storage, then it's going to be remaining in the blood it winds up causing a problem for diabetes.
Okay, so this is a process that naturally takes over when we take in carbohydrates,
Absolutely.
all right?
Absolutely.
So pancreas is alerted, sends out the insulin, takes that glucose, moves into the muscle for energy, store that's called glycogen, moves into the liver for stored glucose, that's called glycogen as well.
Yes.
Then the rest goes into the fat storing cells. And I think if we have any type of physical activity, then the extra glucose does not go into the fat storing cells.
That's right.
It's used up because the muscles house that extra glycogen there for any type of physical activity. So with that in mind, we also are designed to engage in some type of physical activity, thereby that extra glucose does not go into the fat storing cells.
That's
right?
That's right.
Now, having said all of that, I know there are different types of carbohydrates, all right? Kind of walk us through the different types of carbohydrates and what do they mean as far as diabetes is concerned.
Well, we have three types. One is your sugars, the other is starches, and then the other one is fiber itself.
Okay.
When you break them down, as we look at the carbohydrate kingdom, when we talk about the sugars, we talk about natural sugars. Natural occurring sugars would be that in your fruits, bananas, your apples, your oranges, naturally occurring. Now, there's also a processed sugar, and that means that chemically, that particular item has been altered. Chemically.
So refined.
then become refined, become processed. You know, you'll find your cakes, your cookies, your pies, so on and so forth. These words, when you look on an ingredient list on an item you're buying, a processed item, you will see another word. That's OSE. And you'll see dextrose, maltose, lactose, sucrose. All those OSEs means that that item is no longer what's been tampered with. It's no longer in its natural state.
Okay.
That's under the sugar area. When we talk about the starches, now we're talking about your starchy vegetables. We're talking about the peas and the beans, corn. Those are all a part of what we call the starchy vegetable kingdom, all right? And along with that, when we talk about the starchy vegetables, whole grain is a part of that. Your oats are a part of that. Now, we're talking all whole items, brown rice, whole wheat bread, okay? We're not talking about the processed breads, okay? And we're not talking about white rice. We're talking about whole wheat flour. We're not talking about white flour. These are very, very important, especially when we talk about that insulin level doing what it needs to do as far as getting the sugar, glucose into the blood, into the cell itself.
So we want to maintain that glucose level at its normalcy, because when we take in a white refined product, then we have a glucose spike.
Absolutely.
The higher the spike, the greater the drop.
Absolutely.
So you want that.
You want the normacy where we say it kind of goes up very, very slow. Think about it. When you eat a bowl of beans and rice, beans and brown rice, you'll notice that you actually stay fuller longer, but also the normacy of the sugar level stays also at a normacy. Versus if you eat a donut or cookies, it spikes up real high and then it comes back down.
Yes.
Okay. The other one is fiber.
Okay.
And the fiber is, believe it or not, the rough, rich portion that the Creator God put on our foods. And we talk about the fiber, we're talking about the skin and the seeds of the actual vegetable kingdom. All right. And then also it's indigestible. The body can't break it down. That's a blessing, not a curse.
So with the fiber, that also helps to normalize glucose levels too with that fiber.
And that's the normalizing factor, occurs because on the beans you got the skin, on the nuts you have the skin. Okay, on even brown rice you have the hull. So all of that is a part of the fiber, and fiber plays an important role. As a matter of fact, I have some things down here that talks about what fiber can do, the benefits of it. It can normalize glucose. That's what we're talking about, normalizing the glucose at a normacy. It can assist in digestion, which is very, very important. It gives a sense of fullness. You know, when you do that, beans and rice or soups that's got lots of good veggies in it, you stay fuller longer, all right? How about lowering cholesterol levels? People who have a problem with that, they go on that plant-based kingdom, eating more fibrous foods, then of course that will do the same thing. And then of course it helps to maintain regularity. So all of these are the benefits of fiber. So we have sugar, we have the starches, we also have the fiber. The Creator God knew what He was doing, and He gave that diet to us, just as you said in Genesis 129 and of course 318.
Yes, okay, very good.
Well, speaking of that, there's a term called chromium.
Okay.
And what kind of role does chromium play when we talk about the carbohydrates?
Yeah, chromium plays a very critical role as far as enhancing the production of insulin. Okay, insulin needs chromium to be produced.
Okay.
And so with that in mind, chromium is very critical in the overall scope of diabetes management. Let me explain. There's not a lot of chromium in the plant kingdom. This is a trace mineral now, all right? So we're talking about not milligrams, but micrograms.
Right.
All right? So with that in mind, we need chromium for help with the insulin production. Now, with that in mind, some of the foods that has high amount of chromium, this also in your workbook, the number one food that I've found is broccoli. About a half a cup of broccoli, okay, 11 micrograms of chromium in a half a cup of broccoli.
Wow.
This is cooked.
Yes. Now, is that just in broccoli, or is there other foods as well?
Well, other foods as well, particularly in the whole wheat product category, as far as your breads, your buns, those kind of things, your English muffins. So that's why those who are diabetic, those who even not are diabetic, it would be advantageous to buy whole wheat, 100% bread products. That way you get also the chromium that the body needs to help enhance insulin production, all right? More about that in our workbook, but I think it's time to go into the kitchen because we're going to do a little test too.
And I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to do a little test, but I'm glad you brought up about the broccoli.
Yes.
Because our dish today is a Thai chicken,
in quotes,
mock chicken, stir fry. And we're going to have some real goodies in there, some things. We just got finished talking about that fiber and all that kind of good stuff. So you want to get your paper and your pencil and meet us in the kitchen.